A Melody Through Time. In the quiet town of Alderbrook, nestled between misty hills and golden meadows, there stood an old music shop called Vincent's Melodies. It was a quaint little place filled with dusty violins, gleaming pianos, and the scent of aged mahogany and forgotten tunes. Few knew its history, but many remembered the kind old man who once ran it, Vincent. When he passed away, the shop remained closed for years, until one rainy morning, the sign turned to open again. The door creaked as Clara stepped inside. A gifted violinist from the city, Clara had returned to her hometown to escape the noise and mend her heart after a difficult breakup. She didn't expect much from Alderbrook, just solitude, some fresh air, and a quiet place to play her music. What she didn't expect was him. Elliot was already inside the shop, tuning a cello. He looked up when she entered, brushing a lock of dark hair from his eyes. "You're here for the violin," he said, as though he had been waiting. Clara blinked. "How did you?" He smiled. "Vincent told me someone would come for it. A musician with fire in her fingers and sorrow in her heart." They found the violin together, hidden beneath layers of cloth in the back room. It was beautiful, old, handcrafted, and silent for decades. When Clara played it for the first time, the shop seemed to hold its breath. Her melody drifted through the air, aching and pure. Elliot listened, and for the first time in years, he smiled like he meant it. As days turned into weeks, Clara and Elliot began to meet every afternoon in the shop. He was a composer, quiet and thoughtful, who had once lost his ability to hear music after a car accident. He claimed her playing helped him remember it, note by note, like sunlight through fog. They began writing music together, telling stories through song, sharing pieces of their pasts in every chord and pause. The town whispered about them, the quiet composer and the passionate violinist, always walking home together beneath the falling leaves. But neither of them cared. Music had become their language, their bridge, and their bond. One autumn evening, after a small performance in the town square, Clara found a letter tucked into her violin case. It was written in Elliot's careful handwriting. "You brought music back to me. Not just the sounds, but the feeling of it. You made my world bright again. If you'll stay, I promise to write a lifetime of songs with you." Tears welled in her eyes. She turned, and there he was, waiting near the fountain, nervously holding a small music box. When she opened it, it played the first melody they had written together. Clara didn't need to say anything. She walked up to him and kissed him under the golden streetlight, as the song played softly in the background. They reopened the music shop together, turning it into a place for lessons, concerts, and love. And every evening, they played duets in the corner window, two souls bound by melody, healing, and the quiet promise that sometimes, love doesn't shout. Sometimes, it sings. Where the Stars Remember Us. Chapter 1, The First Light. In a quiet seaside town called Morro Bay, where the air always smelled of salt and lavender, a young woman named Alara lived in solitude. She ran a small bookstore inherited from her grandmother, nestled between a faded bakery and an old lighthouse that hadn't lit the sky in decades. Alara loved stories, especially those about love that survived time, war, and even death. But she had never experienced it herself. Every evening, she would walk to the edge of the cliffs with a cup of tea, watching the sun bleed into the horizon. That's where she met him. Liam. He was a traveler, a photographer whose soul seemed to be searching for something he couldn't name. He came to Morro Bay to chase the quiet, as he called it. The first time they spoke, it was because his dog, a golden retriever named Coda, ran straight into Alara and knocked her tea into the grass. He apologized. She laughed. He took a photo of her laughing. And something began. Chapter 2, Between Pages and Photographs. Days turned into weeks. Liam started visiting the bookstore every morning. At first, he said it was for the coffee. Then, for the books. But it quickly became clear that it was for her. Alara, who had built walls of paper and silence, slowly began to open. She showed him her favorite poetry. He showed her the way he saw the world through his lens, fragments of beauty hidden in the ordinary. They would walk through fields under golden light, talk about constellations, and share dreams beneath the old lighthouse, where he would teach her how to use his camera, and she would read aloud to him until the stars came out. But love, as it often does, came with its shadow. Chapter 3, The Storm. Liam had a secret. He wasn't just passing through. He had been diagnosed with a rare heart condition that could end his life without warning. The ocean air was supposed to be healing, or at least calming. While he waited for a transplant that might never come, he never meant to fall in love. But how could he not? The day he told Alara the truth, it was raining. She stood silently, rain running down her face like tears she refused to shed. "You should have told me," she whispered. "I didn't want you to feel sorry for me." "I don't feel sorry. I feel angry, Liam. Because I love you." And just like that, the words were out. So were his. "I love you, too." They kissed under the rain, both of them knowing time might be cruel, but they would not let it rob them of the moments they had. Chapter 4, The Waiting. Liam stayed. The transplant list was long, but every day he had with Alara was a reason to hope. Together, they repaired the old lighthouse. "If it ever lights again, it means we've made it," Alara said. She never left his side. On difficult days, she would lie next to him, reading stories about lovers who met in war zones or danced under bombed skies. Liam would photograph her sleeping, the light from the window painting her like a living poem. Then came the call. A donor had been found. The surgery was risky, but it was a chance. Before Liam left for the city, Alara gave him a letter. "Open it only if you wake up," she said, smiling through tears. He did wake up. Inside the letter were 3 words. "Come back home." Chapter 5, Where the Stars Remember Us. A year passed. The lighthouse shone again. Alara stood by it every evening, watching the horizon like she once did, always with a second cup of tea in her hands. And one summer evening, Liam returned. Healthier. Alive. He walked up the hill, camera in hand, and said, "I missed the light. But mostly, I missed you." They held each other like the sea held the shore, eternally returning, no matter the tide. They married that autumn, in the field where the lavender bloomed wild and free. And every night, as stars blinked into the sky, they would sit outside the lighthouse, hand in hand, telling each other stories, not just of love found, but love kept. When Stars Forget to Fall. Chapter 1, The Meeting. In a quiet seaside town called Astoria, where the breeze always carried the scent of salt and forgotten dreams, lived a girl named Alara. She worked at a small bookstore tucked between a flower shop and an old clockmaker's store. Her days were wrapped in pages and poems, and her nights were spent beneath the stars, writing letters she never sent. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled in the distance, a young man stepped into her shop. He was tall, with windswept hair and eyes like a storm trying to calm. His name was Cale, a photographer who traveled across the country capturing forgotten places. His camera was old, but his gaze held stories that even photographs couldn't tell. "Do you have anything about constellations?" he asked, water dripping from his coat. Alara smiled softly. "Follow me." That was the beginning. Chapter 2, Letters in the Sand. Cale started visiting the bookstore almost every day. He would browse aimlessly, ask about strange myths, or bring her coffee when the mornings were too cold. Sometimes, he would leave little photographs between pages, sunsets, crashing waves, children laughing, tiny gifts he never mentioned. Alara, in return, began writing again, not in journals, but in letters addressed to no one, until she started writing them to him. She never meant to give them to Cale, but her heart knew. One evening, he found one tucked inside a book he'd borrowed. It read, "You remind me of the sky before a storm, beautiful, wild, and just a little sad. I want to learn your silences." He didn't say anything for days, and Alara thought she'd ruined everything. Then one morning, she found a photograph on her doorstep. It was of the sea under starlight, and on the back, he'd written, "And I want to learn your light." Chapter 3, The Fall. As summer turned into golden wind, their hearts grew fuller. They explored hidden cliffs, shared midnight ice cream, and made promises without words. Alara had never felt more like herself, like she was finally seen. But Cale had shadows he never spoke of. His past was scattered like broken film reels, an absent father, a lost sibling, a war within himself he couldn't name. When he received an offer to work in Norway for a year, something in him broke again. "I don't want to leave," he said, holding her hand tightly. "Then stay," she whispered. But he couldn't. And she didn't ask again. Chapter 4, The Wait. Alara waited. Days turned into seasons. She still worked at the bookstore, still watched the stars, still wrote him letters she didn't send. Then, one night, a letter arrived, postmarked from Oslo. Inside was a photograph of two hands reaching across a window pane, rain falling outside. "I saw this and thought of you. Of us. I'll be home soon, if home is still you." She cried that night. For all the waiting, all the silence, all the love that never left. Chapter 5, When Stars Forget to Fall. On the first day of spring, Cale returned to Astoria. The town hadn't changed, but everything in him had. He found Alara on the cliffs where they once watched stars. "I'm late," he said softly. "You're here," she replied, brushing away a tear. He held out a small book, her letters, all of them, every single one. "I read them every night." And without another word, he kissed her. Because sometimes, love doesn't need grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes, it just needs two people brave enough to begin again. Epilogue. Years later, the bookstore expanded, and on the back wall hung a frame. Inside it was the first letter Alara ever wrote and the first photograph Cale ever gave. Above it, a simple sign read, "When stars forget to fall, love teaches them how."